Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 9. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Love to see you around here more often. So we'll just continue here. We're slowly building up our deficit of officers, but since we are not at war, it's not a big deal at all right now. It was last episode going through some of this cost here. So you have that plus 4%. Well, like I was saying, the Werecrest system is this is Ludendorff's magazine. You've all heard of Ludendorff, sort of the guy who did that last decent offensive in World War I, organized that up, also involved in that putsch that Hitler did in Munich. That he was you know, somewhat in on, somewhat not in on. I don't know. I think if it would have went off, he would have tried to claim credit for it. But he started a magazine, also very much prompted by his wife. And he tried to do a he drifted from the Nazi Party, joined his wife in setting up the Tannenberg Bund, with the organization taking its name from the Tannenberg, one of Ludendorff's greatest military triumphs. The Bund became a prolific producer of conspiracy literature, although they were openly rejected by the growing Nazi movement, for whom some of the Bund's more wild ideas were too fancifully conspired. So he's hanging out on the sort of extreme wing of the Nazi type radical movement going on. Basically his Bund falls apart, but he keeps producing his magazine. The Nazis allow it until he dies. So one of the sort of exemptions from the sort of National Socialism controls everything, mostly because he's if anything, you know, a kook out on the extreme from there, but also he's sort of super popular. And you know, you don't fight battles you don't need to, especially when they're not your enemy, if you will, once you get into power. Well, we were going through these. So you have, excuse me, you have the Werecrest system. You're going to get a bunch of benefits from that, but it's going to cost you 1% throughout the game. You have bonus of 4% from the Bank of International Settlement. That's one of the main reasons or maybe the second reason of the two, I've resisted normally going into Switzerland. You have the Eisenbahn cannon program, the railway cannon. That's 2%. That'll go for a considerable time. I don't know if it ever goes away or not. U.S. We'll give them money. Okay, we want to build up some crude. Give them cake is what we're gonna do until maybe forever. TRE start 10%. That will be changing. That 10% hit. That's a big hit. Building manufacturing plant. Another minus 5%. And we have Reich economics. That's doing well, so that's a plus 15%. Okay, naval strike tactics advance. Very good. There. No, down here. We're going to let that one go because it's still a 36 technology. Cruiser damage control systems. We'll stop that. Yeah, let's do close air support. So that's good. Propaganda press is hurting us by 2.5%. Mixed industry plus 5%. War economy plus 25%. Totalitarian system minus 2%. Okay, seaport capacity. And whether it should be 2 or more percent, I don't know, but I do definitely I'd rather do something. I know we're doing it with those others. Yeah, we'll do anti-aircraft ammunition. Seaport level. That will also hit us until December 36 by -5%. So that's pre-war seaport level. See down the bottom, been added to that thing, to the list. Totalitarian system. Yes, see, it's compared to free economic systems. I agree that would be growing faster. But even though we have that hit of -5%, we now have a money +1% and resources +1%. So that's good. Our seaports are bringing in stuff. Deputy Führer, oh no, the president of the Reichsbank, that is Schacht. He's getting us +10%. Deputy Führer, Rudolf Hess is 2.5%, and from improved technology, 24.5%. So some of those are canceling each other out to some degree, of course, but okay. So we've gotten to high popularity, which is great, and fleet auxiliary carrier doctrine. So we've got that nailed down. For the moment, I'm going to continue with just one here and not try to spam those out, even though we are pushing ahead on some other things. And somebody stole our blueprints, and we have more slots we can fill. We'll do fighter bomber prototypes, get those up there. And decision. Okay, yep, we want that. We'll take the full divisions, and there should be down here is more partially built, as well as these. Some adjustments here might be making these, because when they reassign, go down in completeness and in cost, or completeness and go up in cost, I should say. But not a whole lot we can do about that. And again, we're negative. Oh hell. Okay. Okay. So we're doing massive more. We've lost some of the. We had some effect that was costing us more supplies. Albania would like supplies. Okay. Well, we're gonna wait on those a little bit. Nav pilot training. Okay, that's good. Let's look down here. We got those, got that. Okay, we're going to come down here and, well, let's do recon. So that's all we have affecting, and the reason I'm sort of pointing some of this out is, and I've been from last episode, is where I'm just watching that 256 because I've been reading a bunch of people, oh, I'm going, going over 400 or worrying about that kind of thing for, okay, now we, come on, another day, be another big jump, okay, okay, and we should be getting some more money back, but trade resumes. But a lot of these guys are playing that are having some of these, I think, are not having TRE or GGA installed, because some of those are mine. Yeah, stealing our blueprints. Not nice of you. Unless you're going to be a friend. Then, hey, we don't mind. So some of those wouldn't be there. Sort of waiting around. This time I think we should be getting soon the 4-year program kick in. It kicks in 36, but not the beginning of 36. Okay, the Carpathian Deutsches party. Yeah, just about everyone who's halfway studied some of the you know, the Sudeten Germans here getting for Czechoslovakia know about that. I mean, to some degree or another. This is one thing in my research came across. I was sort of surprised. Well, there are also, because, you know, this was also part of Austro-Hungary, and some of this was more in the Hungarian, but even in the Hungarian regions, because there's a bunch of Germans living down here, there were German communities for various reasons settled, you know, government settled versus some, I don't know what you consider a government, a prince or somebody else, you know, moving people in or whatever. So there were German communities down here, but this was sort of a different group. It's a semi-independent sub-party of the SDP. And so when you're looking at, shall we say, national issues, you know, if these guys are sending anybody to parliament, they're all voting with the SDP and, you know, having a united front against everybody else. But locally, basically, as my understanding is, locally under Franz Karamazin, I've seen that spelled several different ways, including different ways back then. It was an inconsistent spelling for some reason, not quite sure. A member of the Czechoslovakian party, but he's basically their own, I think for most of the time, the only one that out here actually gets elected to the national parliament. But they're that big of a group to get a member in the national parliament plus other local stuff. I think, like I was saying, my understanding is, you know, some towns were, you know, virtually, you know, almost everybody living in it were German, so they, you know, but definitely here, and I don't know how much here, but out in, you really had to be wanting to be, you know, a staunch communist or staunch something else, to not be part of the SDP. The SDP definitely had a National Socialist viewpoint to it, shall we say, but a lot of people that weren't necessarily hardline Nazis just supported it because they were sort of being nationalistic. I think that's a similar sort of thing going here. So you can going on, so you can get, you know, local town councils that might be all KDP people, that kind of thing. So we cannot support them though, but we've already gone down the main road, so we'll continue here. If you support them, you may end up just with a small SS garrison unit down there to either use there. Okay, yes, we're building more West Prussian air bases, so let's come down here and move these all to the top. I want to see with all these coming out to see if we get any practical improvements or just they maintain it. Okay, so right now we're looking at 5, 8, 9. That's part of the justification that we modders, those are from the, okay, they've all shown up. So, readjusted, no, 5, 8, 9, so they didn't improve it at all. Because they don't have as big impact. Okay, Hauptamt Ordnungspolizei. After centralizing the German police forces, by mid-36, the SS and police leaders streamlined the regional organization of the police. In 1936, Heinrich and Delig, I think is how you pronounce it, appointed regional representatives and called inspectors of the order police, Inspector der Ordnungspolizei, IDO. From 39 until 45, commanded all of the personnel and units, respectively, of the order police in the region in which they were assigned. So we can form the ORPO or not. We want to do that because we'll get order police headquarters text event plus lose some manpower, cost some officers, some supplies. Do we have 2,000? Yes, barely, because I don't really want to go negative again, and a little bit of research. So we get that now. Okay, so currently we just got. Oh well, we got all this. Okay, and for some reason it gave it to Kesselring. Well. Let's see what we want to do. Why did it give it? Well, let's we're not here. Let's go. Do we have Delig here yet? That would be up here, wouldn't it? D is. Oh yeah, there we go. So we're gonna put him in charge of it. So he basically was. And oh, if we can, we as in modders can force to have more subgroups, but we can only do it by loading an order of battle. But if you detach any one of these things, you're never going to get it back unless it's less than 5. So you're never going to be able to come back on that again if you detach. And I have, okay. I definitely had some trouble finding Orpo people. I'm not going to do too many of these, but do a couple. I do more of this stuff off camera. Back to skill. They're not going to be pretty good mostly. Again, when I'm assigning leaders, because I normally try to you know, Google them, and then well, we'll leave them. We may use this for more commands. Google the guys, and you know, to see what they say in Wikipedia articles or something on any of the people that show up in Wikipedia. And yes, I use Google Translate for the German, because like for these guys, if they have an entry, they're most likely only in German. No, they're all doing the fuel thing. No. Look at that, but I also look at their uniforms. And if they have a, you know, sort of a clean front uniform, you know, no combat ribbons, no other, you know, combat badges, I give them low skills, because I don't know what these guys did, because none of these order police guys, you know, had the really opportunities. You know, some sort of did command units at the end of the war, but they really didn't have too much opportunities to do combat. You know, any significant win battles or lose battles kinds of things. So I really can't go by that. But if they had battle experience, I give them a little better stats, and if I can tell, you know, if they're wearing, you know, some badges or whatever for mountain troops or whatnot, I'll give them that kind of skill. That's sort of how I do it, you know, figure out what skill levels. And so when I was doing the SA ones just recently, reading about it, oh, this guy served in World War I. Okay, so sometimes he said, oh, they made it to like a lieutenant or something. Okay, well, I'll give him, you know, skill level 2, because he hasn't been, you know, presumably in military training, you know, new officer training since World War I, but he has the skills left over, so they're not, you know, up to date. So they're not, because I take 3 as sort of the standard good German officer. So you know, give them 2, and mostly I'll give them 1 if they are, you know, unless I know something bad about it. A few guys, oh, he was some doctor or something, and I just need SA leaders, and he had the rank, though he probably didn't actually command an SA unit, because a couple of the guys I put in were inspectors, you know, or a doctor or sort of medical inspector or for the SA or something like that. Okay, well, these are the right ranks, so we'll give it to him. You don't have to put him in charge of troops. So I made the guy, I think that guy, made him a 0, skill level 0. You know, so it doesn't help a lot, but you whether for immersion or just simply to fill out the units, if you have more SA units. Again, don't build SA units. You've got enough, I think, for most of your needs. And okay, so let's see. We are really sort of even almost getting all the 37s. I really sort of want to get research now. Okay, well, let's do one more round of seaports. There, 37 in. So that's sort of how I do that kind of stuff. So some reasons, you know, a guy who doesn't have Here we go. Who doesn't have a big, military background, and so, he's not going to be a good soldier. Okay, the 4-year plan. Varjaren's plan, or whatever. Sorry, Germans. The 4-year plan was a series of economic reforms created by the Nazi Party. The main aim of the 4-year plan was to prepare the German economy and military for war in 4 years. Well, and I know I wrote that. I would maybe, or at least I took it from somewhere and put it in there. It was a plan for 4 years. It was a 4-year structured plan to make the German army, or economy and army, more ready for war for 4 years. Not necessarily fight the war 4 years from now, if you can understand the sort of difference there. The 4-year plan sought to reduce unemployment, increase synthetic fiber production, undertake public works projects under the direction of Fritz Todt, increased automobile production, initiated numerous building and architectural projects, further developed the Autobahn system. The plan also emphasized building of the nation's military defenses in direct violation of the terms of the Allies set by Allies of World War I for the Treaty of Versailles. Appoint Goering as plenipotentiary of the 4-year plan. Okay, basically, if you want the 4-year plan, you have to appoint Goering. You can't leave Schnack, and I do believe he understands the markets better than Goering does. But Goering has the clout to get things done. So when a Gauleiter, no, we need to keep doing this. No, Goering and his people can come and say, nope. And who are you going to complain to? My best buddy who I eat dinner with every other night or something? Hitler? Goering would say, no. Goering has the weight to do so. So, we will, TRE start, that 10% here goes bye-bye. We also get the 4-year plan, which is a plus 10%. So we're going from a negative 10% to a plus 10%. So that's a 20% swing in our ICs. And like I say, right now, at 260, I don't think we are in danger of going over 436, but we will see. Plus, you're getting more industrial centers. All those, the few loses, don't pay attention to it. A real loss will have a negative in front of the number. Hey, we have Schacht here with Hitler. For some reason, he closed his eyes, maybe with a flash or something. When the photo was there, and there his signature. He remains the president of the Reich Bank Directorate, but he loses eventually one of his some of his other jobs. You can read about it and all that. So now we have this, and we have him here. So we have we've also lost the, we're not going to replace him. If you remove him, if I actually remove him, you'll lose the 4-year plan benefits. So don't do that. It ends it. You can't get it back. Just a warning. If you remove him, you can't get it back. I have checks for that. Not people from Czechoslovakia or Czechia, but checks within the game. But Schacht. Oh, it was still here. Oh no, maybe I just totally get rid of him. But his bonus benefits to the economy go away. Cancel that. But what you do get here is a plus 5% to resources. You also get this plus 5% from Goering. And the reason you get both of those is because Goering is also, and we'll see some of this coming up, head of Reichswehr Hermann Goering. And a lot of what Reichswehr Hermann Goering was is, and I've talked about this in the last episode, I know, about some of the economic things, that Germany had a massive deficit problem in trying to, they were importing dollar-wise or Reichsmark-wise or whatever, much more cost than they were able to export. People didn't want to buy things from Germany. Some of that's emotional and political. Some of it just, the French radio factory could produce more radios, but they're only producing enough to meet demand, and they could step it up. So why would you import German radios when you already have enough French radios or whatever it might be, toasters, or you get the idea. So Germany has this economic problem because they weren't able to just, oh, we need more money, let's sell supplies to America. They weren't able to do that. That's unrealistic in the game. But still, a company would look like and go, oh, we need this particular raw material. And I read some of this, and I forget some of this stuff. And let's say that there's a deposit here. And this is some of the things that Reich Hermann Goering and the 4-year plan would do. Go, well, we could mine this stuff here. But, and it's sort of like open pit mining, say. But the percentage of the mineral that they want to get out of the ground mixed with other junk stuff, earth or just whatever, is low quality. And it was cheap, either maybe cheaper or maybe about the same price or maybe just a little more expensive but sort of easier to do, and you didn't have to start opening the mine. This is what, leading up to the 4-year plan, they were finding, the Nazis were finding it. Nobody wanted to open up this mine because you could import, in this one particular thing, you could also import it from Morocco, and it was in good quality, and you just ship it up here and it's cheaper. For the company to buy it locally, it was cheaper to import it from Morocco. But two things: one, it costs foreign currency to import it from Morocco, and two, once you go to war with France, your supply coming from Morocco, even if you somehow can still, you have underwater submarines with huge transport capacity, they aren't going to sell it from Morocco because they're part of France and you're going to be at war. So they needed to get this whatever, and it's different things in different areas, working. And so Goering, with the Reich Hermann Goering, got these mines and refineries going, and they could operate. They found with partially with the protectionism that tariffs from importation, partially with that. Once they got it going, they could work it at a profit, but it really would take super long time, many years. The cost of getting it working, of setting the mine up, of setting the refining up, of doing all that stuff. Because the percent you were making often was, 5%, 3%, some sort of minor percent you were making. But when the government set this up and paid for the setup, it worked. And that's what a lot of the Reich Hermann Goering was doing and the 4-year plan was doing. And that's why I have both of these here. So while he's in charge of the 4-year plan and the ministry going on, you get 10% resources. Now, once you go to war or the 4-year plan ends in the beginning of 1940, you want to kick Goering out, and by that time Fritz Todt will be available. You want him in, but so you'll still get the 5%. So he's not as in charge as much, so it's not expanding the resource needs as much, but it is expanding it some because Reich Hermann Goering and the 4-year plan actually stay around, but its importance goes down and down and down because it's moving more towards, instead of expanding industry, which they continue to do, but it moves much more into, we need to build more aircraft, we need to build more tanks. It changes focus, and that's sort of what I look at with this kind of thing. Just to give you my thoughts, why I'm doing the wacky stuff I'm doing. Let's do submarine holes. Oh no, let's stop. Let's just get long-range submarines built or designed. Better ones. Do we still have more? Oh, we still have more leadership. Okay. Oh, we have a bunch more leadership. Look at that. We're up at 47 now. Oh, well, that's because we've lost some of the and we've gained some of the stuff because of the 4-year plan. So yeah, we'll do a bunch of these. We're no longer hit nearly as bad as we were. And I really wanted to reflect, because I just forget what the date is, and I sort of started as at the start date historically of the 4-year plan. Germany really gets to really gets into gear for preparing for war with that. That is the real. Schacht really understands the economy better. He's a market-oriented person, and he really also he didn't disagree with the National Socialist, rebuilding Germany or whatever. He wasn't fighting him on that. He just wanted to build it he wanted to build a super economically strong Germany, not necessarily a super military strong. He wanted to build more tanks because he, get a nationalist, wanted a good German army, and whatnot. and Air Force and whatever. But he wanted to do it on a much more, I'll say, practical and sensible way. That's what he wanted to do. So he was not on board for the 4-year plan, if you will. So now we're up at 290 instead of at 260. So we get that jump up. So our diplomatic service reports that on the 23rd of October 1936, the Czechoslovakian government began to create border guard defense units called Strats Obrany Statu, SOSs, they initialize it, composed of members of the gendarmerie, the police, the military, financial officers, as in like enforcement officers, like police, but maybe security guard type, civilian volunteers whose mission was to guard the border and to keep the border areas peaceful and in order, because the SDP that we're supporting here is acting up and trying to cause incidents to then blame that on the Czechs for, hey, the Czech police just beat us up and, and whatnot, and here's photographic proof of our injuries. And they were doing a lot of this kind of stuff. The SOS units within the and they were under the Ministry of the Interior, work closely with units of the Czechoslovakian army, which are under the Ministry of Defense or whatever it was called. So they're much, and these are some photos of them, of the SOS type, and so they wear different uniforms because they come from different, the police guys are still wearing police uniforms, and the gendarmerie were still wearing, and some military elements in there that were now sort of working under the Ministry of the Interior were still wearing their army uniforms, so they were still, doing their stuff, but they were now coordinating these special units for border area security and working it out. So they're part of this counter-guerrilla warfare, because the Nazis did set up guerrilla warfare type units and training in Freikorps, and we'll see some of that coming up, and this was the Czech counter to it. So they were really trying to be proactive. But from everything I get and asking, they weren't really a secret police or arresting people, at night kind of thing or whatever, that everybody was living in fear of. I'm sure if you're a Nazi agent provocateur, you were, maybe worried about something like that, but they weren't a big thing. Okay, and this is one thing that I hear now that I've really sort of looked at and have created a bunch of stuff for Heart. Yes, I'm promoting my Hearts of Iron 4 the mod as part of this, but I've really looked at this, how this starts. Italy, Mussolini particularly, I'll say, including the king, but Mussolini really values his alliance with Britain and France. Really thinks very highly of it. He looks at this alliance as securing Italian gains from World War I and wanting to keep that in force. And really looking at strategic defense alliances. Even though he's fascist, and at this time he puts together the Three Powers Pact, which he formalizes at the beginning of 1936 between Austria and Hungary and Italy. But even though he's trying to do a greater alliance with United Kingdom and France, but this Three Powers Pact is specifically directed, and he had been working on it in 35, his diplomats and negotiating it, really set up to be an anti-German defense pact, mutual between these three countries. And that's what he's really working on setting up, and he's really pushing down this road in an anti-Hitler sort of way. Mussolini does not like Hitler early on. Hitler has a bust of Mussolini in one of his offices, and is, I'm patterning myself after Mussolini, and I want to become his buddy. And at this time, still in 36, Mussolini is still the big guy. Still, he has a bigger army. In 36, Mussolini has a much bigger army than Germany does. If you're not counting the SA and such, if you're just counting the army. And Mussolini has a much bigger air force and a much bigger navy in 36 than Hitler does. Much bigger. So Mussolini in that way is much more powerful in in a military sense, in troops that they can field in 36. Now that changes by 39-40, but now Mussolini is the powerful guy in this power pact. Hitler is moving more and more. He in the beginning of 36, he's reoccupying the Rhineland. In 35, he's renationalizing the Saarland. That was still sort of under French occupation until that point. And he's moving. He's moving in this direction. He's still working at some point, and I don't think they're in this, and maybe they'll show up. But I found out that Czechoslovakia had rights to move up this river, and I think it's this river, to move goods internationally, that they could put on barges, and Germany couldn't look in the barges. They were sealed. So it's like shipping customs. So if Czechoslovakia wants to sell arms to China, they can put on a barge full of machine guns and machine gun ammunition and sail them right through Germany, and Germany can't say boo about them. Can just look, oh, those are sealed as Czechoslovakian. Now they could watch them and make sure that no one opens up whatever it might be, whether it's arms or radios or toasters to sell to Germany, to keep anti-smuggling into the German market. But Czechoslovakia had use rights on some of these rivers to get to ports, and use rights in the ports to load stuff, as well as put stuff on, a ship could come into Hamburg, unload without, again, unloaded at a particular wharf or whatever, unload. Germany could not could not inspect any of the goods, could not charge them for any import or export duties, load them up, put them on barges, and then send them up the river to Czechoslovakia. This was part of the Treaty of Versailles, or one of the other treaties in conjunction ending World War I. So Czechoslovakia had use rights of a couple of these rivers to communicate out to the rest of the world for international shipping in and out. And Germany couldn't stop it at all. And so long as German barges can go up and down the river, meaning if some locks or something was broken, obviously the Czechs couldn't go. But if the Germans were moving goods up and down the river, so could the Czechs at whatever rate and at whatever amount, and they didn't have to pay any taxes, tolls, or other things. So they just in and out. Hitler's still under this in 36. I think it's sometime in 36 they reject this and stop this. Hitler forces, ends this. But in at the start of 36, I know for sure, Germany's still at this point, under the pressure of Versailles. Maybe it's 37 they take it off. I don't know. We may find out in an event. So, because I'm confused of what events are in the 4 version and the 3 version and some of the later stuff. But, so, Hitler's under this. Mussolini's the opposite. Mussolini's leading a country that's a victor in World War I. Yes, they're involved in naval treaties and whatnot. So how many battleships can they build, and how big a tonnage and this kind of thing? But he can build as many tanks and aircraft as he wants. He can have as big an army as he wants. He can do all that kind of stuff. So Mussolini is not constrained at the start of 36 like Hitler's constrained at the start of 36. Again, as we see over time, this shifts. But what really, really disturbs Mussolini was not that Britain and France opposed his invasion of Abyssinia, Ethiopia, whatever. I sort of have to pause how I want to call it that. But they put on, through the League of Nations, basically stopping all trade from every League of Nations member to Italy, except in oil. Oil was the only thing that Mussolini could import from League of Nations nations. The one thing that might cripple Mussolini's military action, oil. But they put on this embargo from, sort of an embargo for their dealing with them. So non-League of Nations nations Mussolini starts looking around from them, and one of the non-League of Nations nations is Germany, for more trade. And he's starting to realize that maybe, because he wants to grow his empire at the expense of Yugoslavia, and maybe at the expense of Greece, and maybe at the expense of Turkey, and, if the Western allies of his nation aren't going to allow it, maybe he has to look for other allies, which then, of course, allows him to the possibility of expanding his colonial empire into regions that are, owned by France and Britain. And so he's starting down the path to move towards Hitler just at this time. This is when this starts because of this. Now, he hasn't given up at this point, or renounced the Three Powers Pact, defending against Hitler, because he's still unsure about Hitler, because Hitler wants all the Germans under Germany. Well, this part, and some of you have, chatted below about some of this stuff. The Tyrol regions at this time were majority Germans. Nowadays, they're a minority in there. Trieste had been an Austrian port as part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, as opposed to, I think, down here is more of the Hungarian port. But so this, and I don't know it in 1936, or what it was in 1918, at the end of World War I, how ethnically Italian, how ethnically, Croatian versus ethnically German Trieste was. But I do know back in the 18th century, Trieste had a lot of Germans living in there. Now, some of the stuff that I know from some of the history, 18th century, early Napoleonic era, they were sort of elites from Austria-Hungary, so they may have thought of their main home as somewhere up in Austria, but they were living as part of the 18th century Austrian Navy and such. So that there were a bunch of Germans living down here. And again, I don't know how many and what the percentage of the fairly large urban city of Trieste at the time was German at this time. So Mussolini is sort of worried that once you get Austria with these mountains make a really great defensive buffer, So if you've got the Austrian army here with the ability to reinforce, sending up the Brenner Pass, more Italian mountain troops to hold if you're going for some war with, if the Western Allies, because if Germany's going to come to World War II and going to fight Britain and France, and at this time starting up, because there's sort of rumblings of this, in 34 and 35 and in 36, at the start of it, Mussolini's looking like he's going to come on these guys' side again. And he would much rather fight that war in Austrian territory than fight it back in territory of Italy. So he's very unsure of what's going to happen with Hitler. So even if he's going to go down the path of Hitler, is Hitler going to demand his territory? Is Hitler going to demand a Mediterranean port for Greater Germany? He's really sort of worried about this. So this is a start of a dance. And it continues over time. Now, this is, you can read this here. Virginia meant that her southern boundary was protected. It thereby released German troops for use. But here, take this. If you want to do this, Rome-Berlin axis, or take a different path. I'm trying to be reasonably clear. If you take this, you're probably not, I'm trying to remember, I don't think you're going to ever get the Italy into the Axis. This is your chance. If you want to do world conquest Germany while playing Third Reich events, let's take a different path. You won't get the benefits from having Italy as part of your alliance, but you get to conquer it if you want to. But you won't get to conquer it if you take this path. We're going to take this path because we're not doing world conquest Germany this time. And as you can see, we're reducing down our needs of consumer goods. Another 4. Okay. Okay, how big is this hit? 6,000 supplies. Okay, well, we might as well take another hit here because it's going to be a long time until because we could, if it was going to be a little bit, but yeah, we're going to pay for this. Okay, wait for it to go to 0 or to 1 or whatever. Okay, Canaris to Spain. Send Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, the head of the Abwehr, to Spain to organize a German spy network there due to his excellent Spanish. This will help The Nationalists stop the Communists and improve our intelligence network in Spain and the region. And to my understanding, this mission that, this is just a General Tangier Gazette headline that I had, but there's a picture of Canaris in civilian clothes. That was part of the point of it, because he would go as a civilian, not as a, wearing his German uniform. And I do believe that's a well, he was killed post-war, so I believe that's a pre-war as opposed to a wartime photo of him. I try not to lie with photos, images in this. He gets, but I don't know that this photo is taken in Spain or anything. May have been, I don't remember. He's down. To the best of my understanding, he's down to help organize up and help the Spanish nationalist intelligence network. And of course, by doing so, by helping it out, he's making contacts and getting agents inside the Spanish intelligence network for Germany. So it both helps Spain out, plus it penetrates Spain's intelligence network, meaning it gives up at least what these people, a lot of the stuff that may be important to Germany to know. So we can set that up. Another cost of money. We're going to wait a little bit because I don't want to get this out. Okay. Okay, we'll do these because this is so bad because we're not selling anything at the moment because we don't have any supplies. One more day and then we should be, because we should be getting, yeah, see, more supplies than we need should be coming in. Okay, we're no longer receiving, see, these ends these things. I don't like it. Okay, so now we're positive. Okay, we're, well, let's wait one more day here. Okay, a bit more positive, so we can spend the 50 supplies and 20 money. It's traveling expenses, bribery expenses. Help out Spain, and help us get stuff going in there. And okay, I want to build up a few more. We can wait on this a little bit. Oh, we're down to medium popularity. Okay, well, that ain't good. So even with all of the various things that promote up National Socialism, both, I don't quite understand exactly what organization level does. I know more is better. Okay, well here, compared to some other things, but how does? But I guess what I'm saying is how much improved organization level does to make it grow popularity. So a bunch of my events, or improve organization levels because they look like they help. Magazines that help organize it. Your party helps internal organization as opposed to necessarily helping popularity. Okay, wait for one more day on the okay, I really don't like this, that it's so random, going up and down, and internal factors. What the hell are these internal factors? I don't mind that Germany doesn't have 99% or 100% popularity, but I want to know the reasons for it, and I want to know what affects it. What are these internal factors? Is it just some sort of balancing mechanism? But I would much rather, whether it's elections or speeches or German minister does something stupid effect. Okay, lay down. Okay, metal. Okay, yep, we'll do this. And that just is down here. This is starting, and of course we're not. Well, one of the things I really love about 4 is the idea that shipyards only going to build ships, so you can put the ships into production. That kind of thing. And civilian ICs only do civilian IC stuff. I really love that. It's sort of, we're going to do Folsom Jaeger headquarters. Supplies 250. Yeah, that's sort of why I was waiting on this. Good. We can afford the 250. Okay, nav tactics advance. Good. 36, so we'll let that go. It's still a 36 technology, and yes, we got a Falsenjäger Corps, even though we don't have any Falsenjägers. Well, that's the headquarters, and they're sort of working things out. Because of some of these minor expansions. Oh, good, we finally stole some effectively blueprints. Pop up and pause. Some minor expansions here, including all of those police headquarters. They're just the barest police battalion. But now you could see here we are all green, but even if you see now, and I don't know whether I'll do this or not, but now that you have this and next year coming along to 37, now is maybe the time to see if you want to not give them cake. I really think the first year you should give them cake, even from a min-max standpoint, just to make sure that you do this. But you could build police headquarters if you want, because you have lots and lots of these guys, because these guys have, well, let's click on it here, suppression 2.6. Not great, but they do suppress. These guys here have suppression 10, much better. But they are the police. The SA are suppressive, most assuredly. These headquarters here have suppression of 2.67, and these guys headquarters have suppression of 2.67. So they're all out there as well, you know, being party militia. They have a lot of suppressive elements going on if you want to do it. If you want to. And I don't know if we will, but if you want to. Okay, we stole British blueprints to improve crew level training, which we hadn't researched at all, to level 1, so great. So that was good. We have been putting a little bit of it in. Hardly any. But as you remember last year, by this, you know, by nearing the end of 36, we had 5 or 6 stealings as Italy. It could have been just the luck of the die roll at the game, but there was just so many throughout it that I don't believe it was die roll. And we're growing our. See, now we're down to 588, where before we were at 589 from the stuff, so it's readjusted down a little bit. Okay, Zeppelin airmail. I just thought this was this is a price sheet for Zeppelin as well as airmail to South America. In Germany, they were really trying to work on things, getting coordination. And just because of faster mail, it's light, so it's not big, heavy shipping, but light packages and particularly envelopes. And this is in the day where they did have transatlantic calling, but that was expensive. And so if you really wanted something, you needed to, you know, kids, you couldn't email. You couldn't email from around the world back then. You had to send an actual letter, a piece of paper. But having this done a little more efficiently, and particularly done between Germany and down here. And Germany, like I say, a lot of these countries down here, Germany is trying to penetrate their market for selling stuff to them, and they'll buy as much as you're willing to sell them with their local money. It's just bolivars from Bolivia aren't really spendable anywhere else. So if there's some sort of mineral that you could buy down here that Germany could use, well, they'll give you a bunch of bolivars if you sell them German things. You know, they'll happily print up bolivars and give you bolivars. And, because I'm pretty sure that's what the Bolivian currency is called, after Simon Bolivar. The country's named after him. You know, so they'll print them up for you. Or actually, a lot of those countries actually had their currency printed in London. Which is an interesting little sub-note in history. A lot of foreign currency, or a lot of, I say foreign because it's not American, a lot of national currencies, even to this day, are still printed in London for a lot of these other African countries and whatever. A friend of my dad, for a while, worked in Sierra Leone, and I think that's where this story comes from. They ordered a bunch of new currency, sort of some higher denominations. Sierra Leone, sort of like $50 kind of bills. They had like 10s and 20s or something. This is back, I don't know, in the 80s or 90s. So they ordered a bunch of these new currencies, and they had them printed up in London. A bunch of new currency sent in. So they shipped it down to Sierra Leone, made it into Freetown, the port. Got in there, all checked in there, and it was in, like, say, I don't know, 2 cargo containers or something like that. I don't remember, the details aren't important, but I think it was 2. But it could have been 4 or something. But 2 of them, let's just presume there was 2. One of them disappears. Just poof. After it landed, the shipping company, the Western shipping company, bonded, got it in, landed, checked in, whatever. One of them disappears. So the other one just got locked up somewhere and sat there. They wouldn't use it because they weren't going to let the criminals, whoever it was, whether it was a government official or just some street gang who could break in, with a truck, and a big enough truck to, because actually the whole container disappeared. It wasn't just emptied, so it wasn't a bunch of guys that broke the lock in and ran in and stole the currency. Somebody got in there with a truck and, big shipping cargo container, and it disappears. And so they weren't going to put this new currency into circulation that would then allow. So you had to do, big stacks of, because, the $20 bill buys 50 cents worth of something or whatever, in Western money. So just sort of an interesting aside about Sierra Leone and their currency. And so, like a lot of these countries, to this day, just their technology to printing isn't very good. But it also was continuing in Latin America as well. So Bolivia will have up as much money as you want to print up. And they'll buy toasters with it or whatever, and obviously you can have an inflationary situation, but if you're willing to sell them toasters, and if they'll use their money to let you buy iron ore or whatever it might be mined in Bolivia or grown in Bolivia, they'll happily do it. Okay, submarine classes advance. And so Germany was doing a lot of that, or doing some of that, because it was somewhat useful. But, okay, so that's grayed out, and since we lost high popularity, we are down a little bit on what we can research. So Germany was really working out, and Germany was working out heavily with, during this time, and I'm going to someday add an event, they made a major dam, made it onto the stamps on all the major, denominations for stamps in Bolivia in in Uruguay. In 1936, Germany built a dam in Uruguay. Is how you properly pronounce it, but I grew up pronouncing Uruguay. On, I think, one of these rivers or something, fairly large lake. It was a hydroelectric dam, still working to this day, though I've seen video inside of it. New modern turbines have been put into it, but it was built back in 36 and before, but completed, I think, in 36. And so they made it onto the national stamp, this new big dam in Uruguay. So Germany was down here trying to penetrate their market, and this was all done by German, I don't know the company, and maybe Philip Holtzmann and such, I don't know, but somebody, but it was sponsored by the Germans to come down and do this. So they were doing this in Uruguay. They were doing different projects in Argentina and these other things. So I know all this stuff is going on. Again, that's a big thing for Uruguay, but it some of the minor projects, some of the major projects, and it helps relations. Okay, the Anti-Comintern Pact. The Anti-Comintern Pact was proposed by Hungary to do this stuff. That we all form this pact to stop the spread of communism, partially as a self-defense, mutual self-defense pact in the sense of, if the communists attack one of us, we'll all come in together and do this stuff. But it was also sort of, we're banning communism locally, and we're not going to do relations with the Soviet Union, and we're not going to trade with the Soviet Union, and we're not going to do military exercises in the Soviet Union, and we're not going to do secret building projects in the Soviet Union, and we're not going to sell the Soviet Union big, massive steel mills that they can't build, that they need to build naval gun turrets and naval barrels. We're not going to do that, and we're not going to do these other things. Oh, you happen to notice all the stuff I was mentioning? Germany was doing at this time, having secret weapons projects being tested in the Soviet Union, and even under Hitler, and selling these big stamping machines that saved the Soviet Union, built in Germany under the Nazis, because the Soviet Union couldn't build them. They didn't have the tech, the machinery to actually be able to build them. That instead of rolling out steel for gun turrets, they were making some of the rolled steel for the T-34s and whatnot, and they couldn't have done the sort of rolled steel front ends, and they could do sort of some of the slab sides, but some of the other stuff they wouldn't have been able to make T-34s or something like that. I forget exact details, without some of these German machines that Germany sold them. And nobody else in the world was, America might have. America set up in around this time because they were running through a depression. Some of the guys who built some of the Ford plants and some of the other major automotive plants, new designs come in and build automotive and tractor factories that are really highly Americanized in style. That's why part of the super production for T-34s and things, part of that is because of these American companies going and showing and actually building at least one factory and teaching the Soviets how to build this stuff. Very modern and efficient going on. So the Americans might have done some of that, but so the Anti-Comintern Pact was supposed to, sort of freeze out the communists. Well, Germany, of course, National Socialist Germany, of course, secretly violates the pact almost entirely. And as this comes out, even though Hungary and Houthi, or one of the elements of Hungary, promote it up, they don't sign it at first. For whatever reason. I don't know whether they didn't like the initial versions of it, or it just became unpopular in Hungary. I don't know. Or maybe Mussolini told them no. I don't know. But, so, we can sign this pact. You can see relations change, because we currently have good relations with China, because we have our German mission to China. That's why this sort of, that we're getting this close to Japan upsets China and the Chinese sub-countries. And then the other ones, of course, that most of the people are upset with are the Spanish Republic, which are being helped by the Soviets, and the Soviet Union a little bit. But it's not so big on the Soviet Union because, again, we're secretly helping the Soviets out, and they're sort of helping us out, selling us resources that we can't get other places secretly. But it does upset that a bit. So I take all this into account. This is beyond this. But if you think they can work together, you're not going to get the events that bring in Japan into the Axis. You still can do the old influence the nation and bring them in, and that way through this mechanic. And the same with Italy. If you decided not to have Italy in the setting up the Rome-Berlin axis, you could still try to do the influence Italy, get them close enough, and then invite them in. But you won't get various popular, or lose neutrality, move relations closer events and other things that will eventually, even if they aren't close enough, will eventually force them into signing. So we want to do this, yes. But you like, okay, we'll give him some fuel. So yes, you can do it sort of the old-fashioned game mechanic way, but it's harder, takes longer. And we'll get some early benefits as well. So we're improving our relations around with our elements. Oh, we no longer get that because of things. Well, let's wait a day or two. Maybe somebody will decide to want to trade with us. Okay, so now we're at the end of November. We have roughly 30 days left, and we're at 304. So you could see obviously, you could take a bunch of hits to supply. I wonder about some of these people that are, because I don't know that I've hardly ever played any significant amount of Black Ice as Germany without TRE installed. There's, yes, we can, and we probably, but we're building up this cushion again and see how we include. Some of those events are TRE, some of the events are GGA, and some of them are Black Ice that are causing some of these big hits that we have to dig our way out of for supply. But yep, we could, either go to minimum supply requirements or try to starve our troops or something else. But I don't see. Oh, and we need to build a few more factories because I'm not really ready to build submarines yet. But I can see, or I can't see us practically still keeping, these kind of things, that we would have a massive, huge, another 100 ICs. And this has, the 10-year plan plus 10% of ICs, and we've removed the negative TRE start of negative of 10%. So we've definitely gone up in ICs there. And we've gotten 4 more ICs from the Nazi Party, Nuremberg rally thing, and that's, Black Eyes. But you're not going to, in a practical sense. I'd love for you to make a video to show me that I'm wrong. And just, not that I want to be wrong, but, if you can do it. And still play reasonably sensibly and get over 400. So you're not able to do that sort of spam it all out trick that some of these other people are able to do without it, because we make it cost. Okay. The Hitler Youth was a preliminary. Yeah, it's just basically an information for people know what the Hitler Youth is. Yes, I know most all of you war gamers already know, but we put it in for immersion, and somebody might not know. Okay, ordering the aircraft carrier craft Zeppelin. Yeah, we'll do this. Let's do that. And there's a picture of Zeppelin. The Graf Zeppelin, the actual guy. So we can lay this down. 3,000 supplies. 1,500 metal. Yeah, we're doing okay on the supplies. We'll do that. I don't know if we're ever gonna get it produced, but it's gonna sit down at the bottom of the queue here for a long time. And it's, it'll get readjusted before it gets completed down to something less than that, I think. But we've got it here now. These do get readjusted. So this is going to be the end of the episode. I want to thank everyone for watching. I want to thank you for liking the videos. And of course, I really love hearing from you. So please post questions, comments, suggestions, ideas, corrections for anything I'm getting wrong. I do appreciate that. Thanks so much. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.